Hey, welcome back to the BVB podcast. My name's Jacob, joined as always by Carver. But before we catch up with Carver, we do have a special guest joining us this week, Stefan Buczko from the YellowWallPod. How are you doing, man? And how's everything in the Yellow Wall world?
I'm doing okay. That's the best you can get out of me these days. But yeah, thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk about this game yet again. Oh, what fun.
Carver, how are you, man?
Let's just fucking get into it. Let's just do it.
30 seconds before recording, Stefan's like, can we swear on the podcast? And I appreciate Carver just letting it rip right off the bat. If anything goes wrong in this episode, I will say I'm feeling a little rusty after being gone for quite a while. Carver, thanks for holding it down while I was away. And yeah, I mean, we'll just before we talk Madrid, I do want to talk a little bit about the other Bundesliga game that happened. Managed to get a win. I don't know if it was the most pretty win, but it was a win. It was 3 points nonetheless. And I feel like even reverting back to this game, even if there's any positives coming out of that game, like it's all just shot. It's hard to look back after what happened in Madrid and try to think of anything. But Carver, you want to start us off with the I don't remember who we played.
St. Pauli.
With these St. Pauli match last Friday. Oh my God.
That game.
Just quickly, just get it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Any good takeaways?
A deserved but an underwhelming win against a very defensive St. Pauli. Somehow that took Shaheen by surprise of them sitting back here at the back five, sitting deep and playing transition on the counter here. Something that I'm noticing when it comes to positives, I guess, if you can call them that, in the last handful of fixtures or even really just this whole competitive season is like you're only seeing the positives in moments. You're only seeing in spurts of 5-10 minutes at a time, if not 20 or 30 at most. And it's either the last 20 or 30 of a game, or if we're lucky, sometimes we'll come out of the gate like against Madrid and look actually pretty decent, not great, but decent. And then we drop off as the game goes on. So, consistency from game to game has been a problem, but also consistency just throughout a single match has also been a problem. I mean, coming out of the gates for this one, I saw some good forward passes, some good movement, but as that game progressed, we looked slower on the ball. We looked slower with our movement. St. Pauli, of course, let us have spells of possession, but with that, you didn't see too much. And even from, the likes of Girassi, Malin particularly looked static at times, not exclusive to them by any means, but just from that front line. Chan sat back between the center halves, forming the back three at times, even Gross doing that as well. We'll get to Chan in a bit here, because I know Stefan, I know you guys talked about it on the YellowWallPod. I just wanted to dogpile a bit on there, not, I think it's kind of deserved at this point. But really just from front to back, that's just kind of what I noticed here in the St. Pauli game. Again, you did get the 3 points, of course, but still very, very underwhelmed.
Stefan?
Yeah.
What you got?
Not much. And it's funny. I was watching this game, sitting on the couch, and my wife was sort of checking in with me in the game every now and then, and I was sitting there, arms crossed, really resting bitch face, not really enjoying anything. And I was like, Stefan, why are you so upset? They're winning. And I'm like, yeah, but they're not playing well at all. And this is arguably the worst team in the Bundesliga right now. And the fact that Dortmund cannot create any real chances against them, what happened in the Madrid game, where Madrid just really piled pressure on Dortmund, is exactly what should have happened in this game too, where Dortmund should have overwhelmed St. Pauli to an extent where they should have broken quite early, and it really should have been a shellacking, especially considering that Dortmund don't have a good goal difference right now. Really need to work on this, because we know goal difference can become very relevant. Obviously, the goal St. Pauli scored, in my view, is offside, because I think in the season 2 years ago, Haaland scored a similar goal against Bochum, or someone scored a goal. It might have been Guerrero, and Haaland was just standing in front of the keeper, and it was a pretty unsavable shot, but it was rescinded anyway for offside. So I assumed the St. Pauli goal, even though it was an awesome hit, was also not going to stand. And I mean, Gregor Kobel immediately flagged it, but VAR did not take it off. And then I guess the big positive is that Dortmund still have the individual skill to then quickly respond. I mean, the dribble, if you want to call it that, or just run into the box, and the cross by bynoe-gittens was pretty amazing. He did this a couple of times over that side, and Girassi just showing again how many skills he has, because that header was just placed perfectly. Would I've appreciated an insurance goal, because you can always give away a dumb penalty, or a cross or a set piece or something that then flies into your goal, and it's 2-2 draw in the end. Yes, it didn't happen. I feel like right at the dying seconds of the game, there was like a penalty shot for Pauli, where I've not seen the replay. I'm not entirely sure if it was anything or not, but it's not a game that filled me with confidence. And I remember myself tweeting out something about that Dortmund, if they play like this, they're probably going to concede 10 goals against Real Madrid. Now, granted, Dortmund overperformed and only conceded 5, but still, I think the overall theme, before we talk about any coaching decisions, is that Dortmund's defense has been lackluster throughout the entire season, and this is really what is worrying me, because what they are averaging in goals against and expected goals against and all that is just not sustainable to have any success, meaning a top 4 finish, let alone competing for any Bundesliga titles or higher places.
12 goals conceded in the league so far, as much as Mainz, Gladbach, a handful of others. We've conceded more goals than St. Pauli, who sit in the, well, of course, just outside of the relegation zone. So, yeah, like you mentioned before, I mean, the goal differential is just not good enough. I know Şahin wanted to kind of switch things up and be different from Terzic, because I know Terzic had like a lot of 1-0, 2-0, 2-1s. And this is a completely different team, trying to be about a lot more attack-minded, but at the same time, you're not seeing a lot of that fluid attack that Dortmund can be putting on in a lot of these performances. After halftime, it looks like, I think if I'm not wrong, Gross came off at the break, and the midfield became even more frustrating. Gross did tuck into those half spaces, get a handful of good crosses, one to Girassi, like Stefan mentioned, or Benzemaini, excuse me, for that opening goal. But Gross comes off, you lose a lot of that calm on the ball. Again, Chan has been misplacing passes, getting passes intercepted, did not bring the energy on for 2 games in a row. Again, not exclusive to him, but I know Chan was very lackluster in this one as well. And the midfield just kind of crumbled after that. So just barely scraping by against a team that, once again, I'm trying to give Şahin an opportunity to prove himself and to build any sort of momentum off of the back of that Champions League game, which is looking more and more like a fluke. Against the Berlin game, it let everyone kind of thought, exactly what you're going to get against a team like Berlin, and we underperformed there. Now we're underperforming against a relegation level side that is sitting back. We did have like an XG of like 4, so there were some chances here and there for sure, but just the score line didn't really reflect the performance that we saw on the field that day.
Just need Dortmund to clean up the act a little. You just mentioned Emre Can. He had a couple of horrendous giveaways where you just pass it right into the feet of St. Pauli, which is why I mean that any better team would have punished Dortmund on this night. If it were Union Berlin again, for example, Union Berlin would have pretty easily won this game because of the mistakes Dortmund made, and St. Pauli just could not capitalize on the chances and whatnot that they had out of Dortmund's pretty glaring errors. So, the XG doesn't really tell you all that much, because St. Pauli did not get the shots out of opportunities they had. But Dortmund just need to clean up their possession. Maybe we can talk in a segue to the Real Madrid game, because possession looked amazing in the first half.
Yeah, just going to mention first, Carver. Earlier you said like the individual moments, and we've obviously seen this throughout the season, but now looking like quite a few matches into the Bundesliga campaign so far, goal differential you guys mentioned too. Bayern Munich sitting in first with 17, which I know they've been just on a crazy tear, but I have 17 off the bat. Goal differential, as you mentioned, is huge, and the fact that we're this far back already is pretty concerning. And then when you look at the matches too, and the individual moments, I don't think I've seen us play with good ball possession since that Phoenix Lubeck match, where we're passing all over, and we're like, "Oh my God, Şahin ball is amazing! Look at all our tiny little passes." And then like since then, it's like just relying on these moments by Gittens and Mullen and Adeyemi and like and Guirassy coming through. Like it's just these moments that are kind of scraping us by, but it's not even like scraping us by towards a lot of success because we're sitting in 7th, 13 points, as you mentioned, +2 goal differential. It's like so. I know it's so early, but it's like looking at the performances already. It's just I'm already almost like panic stations because I see what the other teams are doing, and it seems like we're just so far off.
Yeah, we are truly drifting into obscurity here. And I said last episode too that this team is sleepwalking into another hammering, whether that's in the Champions League or Bundesliga, and probably not going to end there with Madrid, of course. And I actually had in my notes here after the St. Pauli game saying, watch us somehow rise to the occasion early on against Madrid and then go back to being just as shit in the Bundesliga against Augsburg, and then Wolf even probably scoring a banger against us. My thoughts really going into this game at the weekend. But Stefan, did you have any other last thoughts about this game? Or
No, I just want to move on.
I do have a question for you, Stefan, though, real quick. So you saw this Madrid game, Chan was dropped, rightfully so, even though he's our captain. Do you have a preference of a midfield pairing given, you have a handful of center mids now, they all do different things, and Şahin is kind of all over the place with his pickings?
Well, I don't know. I'll be honest. I want to see more of the Sabitzer Mecha midfield that we saw against Madrid. I'm not certain if that's the best option because Real Madrid played so, let's call it bodiless in the first half. They were sort of in cruise control, sleepwalking as you call it, and Mecha and Sabitzer both had acres of space. But that being said, Felix Mecha, I think maybe to me at least is probably the biggest surprise of the season so far is that how good he looks, and maybe that is something that Shine can take some credit for because he looks like a really competent midfielder making a lot of good line breaking passes. What always is important is when he receives the ball that he manages to turn around quickly and then feeds the midfielders in front of him. And he's doing this really well. And Marcel Sabitzer, I think, is probably one of the best central midfielders in the Bundesliga when you actually play him there consistently. And, he's a very smart player, very intelligent, presses really well. And I think considering that Mecha and Sabitzer are both very physical dudes, both manage to, boss the midfield and can keep a sort of compactness and both, have a two-wayness about them. I think this is actually a really good double pivot, but like I said, I need to see more of that. I don't know if it really works or not, but on paper, to me, that is something that really works, and I'm surprised that we haven't seen it so far. Now, granted, I think Pascal Gross had a really good start to the season, but he sort of ran out of steam a little bit, predictably considering his age. And so, yeah, I want to see this happen more time going forward. Granted, Felix Mecha often has injury problems, but look promising because of the passing and also the tackling. Like I said, both sides of the ball looks like something that you can work with. But I also feel like you need to decide on something now so that they can build some more chemistry, because the amount of rotation we had on central midfield has been kind of insane. I understand it. That's probably the position where we have the most depth, and Sabitzer has been playing on the wing for I don't know why. But let's just stick with that. Keep Emre Can on the bench as much as possible, and things should improve.
Yeah, it's not just the changes in personnel from game to game too, but as we saw in this Madrid game, it's the massive changes in terms of our formation and just how we approach certain moments throughout the game too. I mean, everyone here, even though it's already been a few days, everyone knows the horrendous changes Şahin made in just the 59th minute, not even an hour.
55th.
55th, excuse me. 55th minute, so not even an hour of football played. Too negative, too early. But what I wanted to touch on too is just like his post-game comments also warrant some attention, criticism, and concern too. That's what is really making me worried here. I got a quote after the game saying, "Of course the switch didn't work, but I don't think it was due to the system change or the substitutions. It was more that we lacked control. We knew Madrid would push, but we let ourselves get pushed too far back when out of position. When you lose in the end, the adjustment wasn't right. You could say that afterward, but it was clear that we wanted tighter spacing. Was it a lack of courage? I wouldn't agree with that. I'm not German. There might be a slight translation issue there. There could be some different wording. But
no, that's pretty much what he said.
Overall, it just makes me wonder, like, did this man watch the same game we did? Because almost this entire quote from start to finish is the exact opposite of what we actually witnessed on Tuesday. Like, sure, I know you guys mentioned on the show, like, managers at this level may not admit faults often, but this was such a glaringly obvious mistake that it just for me, it just has to be addressed, right? Like, everyone knows where the issue lies. And when you continue to kind of deflect, that is only going to just, I don't know, breed more ignorance for me. And this is not the first time this has happened either. There's been a handful of games now where this, his decision-making in terms of personnel, the changes in style, whatever, will cost us a result, will cost us a goal at minimum. And then after the game, he's saying something that is really not matching at all what people were seeing on the field. And again, it just worries me more than a lot of other things. But Jake, do you have any other thoughts on the game? I know you've been out for a while. Thoughts on the game beforehand, or just these changes overall?
Jake in the 55th minute of the
Yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Well, I usually run on vibes, and all my vibes have been killed. They've all been extinguished after that performance. No, I mean, I was watching. If I would like to kind of jump into the first half a little bit, because obviously everything went to shit. And I guess because I'm watching the game at work, and one of my coworkers leans over, and it's he's like, "Who are they playing? Roma?" I was like, "Hell no, Real Madrid, taking it to them." And then that backfired so quickly. Holy shit, it was horrible. But looking at the first half though, and looking at the lineup, I'll just run through real quickly. Benzabaini got the start, left back, coming off his last performance. Schlotterbeck and Sula coming in. Rierson, as you mentioned, the double pivot, Mecha and Sabitzer. Which, I mean, we talked about it a lot before. Anytime we see Sabitzer further up the field, kind of when they played that like 3-4-3, we're like, we need him a little further back. And as you mentioned, Gross has played, I think, started just about every game up until this point. So it does make sense that he finally it caught up to him and he needed to rest. Then we had Gittens, Brandt, and Mullen with Girassi up top. But yeah, obviously the first half was great. Like, I don't know, like, I was chilling. I was vibing hard at work when I was watching this. And when it comes to the substitutions a little bit later, like, there is, like, I think this is a constant debate with fans versus coach, where you're like, why'd you change up the formation? Why'd you change up what was working, basically? Like, you ride that as long as possible. And so, like, his post-match comments are, like, really frustrating because, like, well, clearly you made these changes and then everything went to shit. So, and clearly something worked right in the first half. I think we did see this against, not this same exact situation against Madrid in the Champions League game, but I remember thinking in that Champions League final at halftime, like, oh, well, like, it's been good so far. It's been okay. But I know Real Madrid's going to change things up, and we probably won't because I don't trust Terzic to do that. And then we're probably not going to win this game, is how I felt. Flip it this game where things are going really well. We do change things up a little bit later, and then everything goes to shit. But what do you guys think in the first half stuck out particularly? And is that a style that we can, or something we can go back to, something we can take forward through the season? And is that something that we can take to be a better team? Because clearly it seems like we already need to fix some things, or at least, like you mentioned, Stefan, like, lock into something and figure something out and stick to it.
All right, let's talk about the positives here, because there were actually a lot. First of all, Shai needs to get a lot of credit for the good lineup he picked, so he could later ruin it. Criteria 1, every player was in the correct position. There was not a left back and right back, or vice versa. We had wingers on the wing, also nice. We're number 10 as number 10, we're number 9 as number 9. That's also not a granted, considering how last seasons and months have gone. And then we had a really brave double pivot, let's call it that, because that is untested for the most part. Not only is it that, but also you don't know if they're going to work well. And you drop your captain, which for Shine must not be that easy, because he's clinging onto Emre Can a little bit too tightly, more often than not. So I think that overall is very nice. Also nice is the principle of passing the ball quite a lot and letting it flow, because Dortmund were not trying to force things too much. They were very happy just creating triangles, just passing the ball around, letting it roll across the beautiful grass in the Bernabeu, and enjoying stints of possession where Real Madrid was not really bothered to press them hard and high. And I think this is exactly what you need to do in the Champions League. You cannot just gain possession and try to immediately score. That's just not how it works, and you will run into trouble. So taking a lot of pressure off yourselves helps a lot, especially theoretically. Now, it didn't work out that way, but in the long run, because that also saves a lot of energy, because you're not running trying to regain possession. So in those terms, I think Dortmund have done really well in the first half, played really intelligent football. And, in terms of build-up and penetrating passes, there were a lot of really good line-breaking passes. We talked about Metscher, of course, but I think Sabitzer had a couple of really good ones. Schlotterbeck, I remember, had a really good line-breaking pass. I think it was to Girassi. Just really vertical, and it's good to see that players appear in those channels, that you can actually make these passes. And we had a lot of really good switches of play, be it Schlotterbeck to Riasson or Brandt on the side when they drifted out, or even Malen. So these are all a lot of positives that we can mark down, and hopefully we'll see again. Because yes, Matthias and I, we lost our minds, but the good news is there is a lot of positive to take away, because this was not any team. This was still Real Madrid, and to go with so much confidence into the Bernabeu and play with so much control, which Dortmund did exercise, is not what a lot of teams do. Now, obviously, Real Madrid did sleepwalk a lot and allowed Dortmund to a certain extent to do these things, but nevertheless, you still need to string together clean passes and all these kind of things. So while I'm really irked about the end result and how this all collapsed on Dortmund in the end, I am very positive, because these, say, principles in build-up and possession is certainly something you can copy-paste. Now, other teams in the Bundesliga will probably press Dortmund a little bit more, but nevertheless, there were triangles, there were runs made where there were passing options. So I think overall this can be replicated. Only question mark is, of course, if personnel can be replicated, because there were, of course, a couple of injuries now. I think Riasson went out, Zulu went out. So that's obviously a massive concern on top of all the other injuries that Dortmund already have, because, say, Adeyemi was fit for this game. I'm pretty sure Dortmund would have scored a third and a fourth one, honestly, because Real Madrid were there for the taking, and Adeyemi and his skill set would have fit right for that, let's call it a mismatch. So before we talk about all the negatives, I think we need to step back and say, well, it's not all shit. There's some progress, because this is certainly something we did not see from Dortmund last season under Terzic.
There's not too much more I wanted to add there. I agree with pretty much all of that. Just the other two things was, one, when we did lose the ball, you did see some tenacity there from the likes of Metscher. I mean, he showed his athleticism, again, the aggression to get the ball back pretty quickly, even, running through 2-3 players at a time, which I love to see, and just keeping that intense pressure on Madrid to keep them pinned at times and just keep them on their heels. That kept them honest too. And then the likes of Malen being on his game, he's been kind of up in the air. Usually, the joke around him now is just he's only really useful for the most part whenever it's in the Rückrunde. So hopefully he can, show a little bit more of himself here in this first half of the season. And then, of course, Gittens too. I thought Gurassi's hold-up play was phenomenal too. And just, him being unselfish in and around the box, having players gravitate towards him, and then just kind of poking the ball back around to either the wingers. And, of course, now they're in dangerous areas, and they're dangerous players themselves. So, yeah, just to piggyback on that, there definitely were some positives there before that 55th minute change. Jake, did you have anything?
No, not really. Like, nothing to add. You guys hit it all.
I distinctly remember sliding tackle by Julian Brandt on Vinicius Jr., where I was like, okay, this team is really fighting and clawing. It'd just be nice to see this in like every game, and not just the highlights, the cherry picking of when do we actually try to defend hard. But yeah, I feel like we need to. We can't beat around the bush for too long and how it all collapsed. I just say it because it was pretty obvious. It was pretty fucking stupid to make this substitution because it sent the signal to your own team. It's like, hey, we're just gonna park the bus now and don't even try to attack anymore. This is good. We'll just try to ride it out, which of course is probably very demoralizing because everyone knows that it's impossible to ride a result out against Real Madrid with like 40 minutes, including injury time, still left to play. And of course, it also really gives the green light to Real Madrid that they now smell blood, that they know psychologically this is now our go time. They're just gonna set up shop in their own box, and it's just a matter of time. And I must say, it is extremely frustrating because Nuri Sahin himself talked so much about courage before the game, and that was the epitome of a lack of courage to me, and really a betrayal of his own words and some, I don't know if you want to call it hypocrisy or not, but really not a good sign that he is soiling himself so hard 10 minutes into the second half.
Yeah.
Obviously, I will say this, even without the substitution, there's a very good chance that Real Madrid win this game regardless. But that is not the point. The point is how this loss came about for Dortmund. And, we talk about how well the system worked. Now, obviously, I think the concentration and the focus went down a little bit. There were a couple of sloppy passes. I think Pierson accidentally put a ball out of play on the right side. And these sort of things contribute for the opponent gaining strength again. But we talked about the setup and how it worked. And now you add Anton in the middle of Süle and Schlotterbeck. And so you don't change just one position, really. You change the entire back line. So you change 3 or 4 positions, arguably, just in the back line because everyone has to readjust a little bit. And then, of course, you have fewer outlets up front with bynoe-gittens. So one less attacking player that Vasquez, for example, has to account for, who himself did not play the best. And that to me is all very vexing because then Guirassy needs to position himself differently, will be put under way more pressure when he receives the ball because defenders now have the chance to do that because there are fewer numbers up front. So all in all, it was hilariously stupid. I think everyone saw it coming right away. I'm definitely on the record when it was 2-0 that this was where Dortmund lost the game. And I would argue that then rejigging everything again with Groß for Malen and having even one less attacking option makes things even worse because you once again tinker with an already not really working system. And so, yeah, the amount of adjustments these Dortmund players had to go through within a 10 or 15 minute span is probably just also too much to ask of them. Unfortunately, I would hope that they would all be more, good at tactical adjustments, but they've really shown so far this season that it's all very shaky.
Yeah, they were simply set up to fail. That 55th minute, same here. I mean, Anton coming on for Gittens, who again, one of our, 3 best attackers at the moment. 5 minutes later, they score. 2 minutes after that, they score again. And then just 2 minutes after that, Sahin says, let's run that shit back. Takes off Malen, brings on Groß. I mean, it's bad enough that you make that negative of a change that early on, 10 minutes into the first half. But then to do it again when you concede 2 goals is, like Stefan said, hilariously stupid. 10 more minutes go by, then you continue to do it, piling on yourself by bringing off Rierson and putting on Chan as a fullback who, to my knowledge, I could be totally wrong, but I feel like the last time he played at right back, or maybe he was even left back, was against Ajax in the Champions League a few years back, and he got fucking cooked by Antony, of all people, in that game. Expecting him to go against Vinicius. Even Kale said in the post-game comments, imagine just defending here and just trying to reiterate what Sahin said of saying, like, we're trying to tighten the spice in the middle. We're trying to limit 1v1s. It's the exact opposite of what we saw here, right? Chan constantly going 1v1 against Vinicius. but not caring whatsoever. It's bad enough that he got beat, but jogging back, having very little to no effort of tracking back and trying to stay with the play, letting the goals just be conceded right in front of him too. It's bad enough for, and Stefan, you mentioned this on the Yellow Wall Pod too. I mean, it's not only insulting to the badge, it's insulting to your teammates, it's insulting to the fucking supporters too. I mean, just in general, it's horrendous. You know, on top of that, you're a captain. I've said before the season that he shouldn't be. Somehow he still is. You can go into a whole different conversation about that of who should be captain at this moment going forward, but you should be wearing that with so much more pride, and he doesn't. And this is not the first time either that he shows that either. I get some players that maybe have a little bit more of that athleticism. You could kind of see that, or you can interpret that they look like they're jogging, like the likes of Mecha, or like people said that about Pogba a lot too, because he just had such lengthy legs. But Chan is just treading along. He is going just along with the play and not caring at all. And it was just disgusting to watch.
I'm not defending the substitutions at all, because I think even looking at the bench, it was still the wrong decision. I'm just about to, I'll preface it so no one thinks that I'm still an idiot sometimes, but like there were not a lot of attacking options on the bench. We had Cole Campbell, the 18-year-old American who hasn't, I don't think, made a first team debut yet, and Bayer, who we did see come on. More being critical of, I guess, squad building and our lack of our lack of depth. With given the injuries we had going into this match, we're out Jan Kuto, who I understand is a fullback, but more primarily a little more of a wingback. Reina out, Duranville out, Adeyemi out, which we kind of talked about. I mean, we talked a lot about Duranville preseason, where we were excited to see him, but I was always just very concerned with his injury record already. Like, at such a young age, he's just been out so many times, and now here's a match where I know we haven't seen him a lot, but that's just attacking depth that we don't have. If you're not bringing anyone else in to kind of fill that role, to be a backup winger, and so we don't have attacking options regardless. But still, if you want to bring on subs, like, I don't think you take out your two guys who scored already and your most dangerous. I mean, Gersi on top of that, but some of your most dangerous attackers is just wild. And I understand trying to defend and hold it, but clearly that did not work. And I also think you have to, if it doesn't seem like it seems like that was just a quick decision and not really a plan necessarily, because I think you can prepare for these scenarios where it's like, guys, this is the plan. If everything goes great, then cool, we're going to shift in this. But it seems like maybe it's with all the partnership, whether it's two pivots moving around or the center back rotation or whatever, like, just didn't seem like we know what the F is going on. The players on the field don't know what the F is going on, and that causes a lot of problems. And I don't know what other attackers you bring on, but I just feel like you leave that structure as long as possible and keep doing what you're doing. Or maybe you switch up the midfield and bring Chan into there to try to solidify that, or like before you do anything. You're shaking your head, but I'm just saying, like, don't.
Can we not say Chan and solidify in one sentence anymore? I think this is proven to not work. I'm sorry, it just doesn't. He's not good enough.
That's fine, but I mean, rather than taking off our attacking threats, and rather than changing the structure completely,
or Mecha.
If you want to put a more defensive-minded player in there, I don't know. Like, obviously that backfired too, but I don't know.
I don't remember Mecha picking up any sort of knock, and he should be able to go 90 minutes here, and he only went 76. I mean, he clearly was having a pretty solid game before being taken off. I just, top to bottom, I just didn't get it. I didn't understand at all. No one did, and it not only failed, but failed spectacularly.
I mean, Jacob did point out the amount of injuries we have. I don't even know if Dortmund really have horrible squad building. I wouldn't even go so far. I mean, it's just unfortunate that you have so many attacking players out. I mean, Adeyemi, people don't even think about Girena anymore, but I sure think that if he were fit, he would have made a difference quite palpably this season too, because he looked really good in the beginning. Obviously, we saw like 25 minutes of him or so, but it was a good 25 minutes. But point here is, if you look at the bench, I think we realistically have three good options that you can substitute, which are Waldemar, Anton, Pascal Groß, and Maximilian Bayer. because Emre Can unfortunately currently does not make the cut, and everyone else is basically just a youth product filling in for the lack of depth that we have, but not really anyone I would seriously consider in such a high profile game, if I'm honest. So I'll be honest, I would make a substitution until very long, and if it's say Jamie Gittens because he's getting tired or so, then you bring in Bayer for him. It's not a like for like because Bayer is not necessarily a winger, but at least that makes most sense. When Riasson goes down with the injury, you bring in Anton, and then Zule slots on to the right side. I think those are sort of the substitutions you can make. And if you want to change systems, say you carry yourself to the 70th minute or so and want to ride it out, I would actually switch. Maybe then you take Malen off, and maybe you just have Bayer and Girassi as your two players up front, and then you bolster the midfield with Pascal Groß on something like that. And I think Julian Brand overall played really well. You didn't need to take him off. Girassi, you don't really need to take him off. But I would make the argument that from the front four, you don't really need to take anyone off necessarily, unless you want to go with a 4-3-3 or something and add Groß to the midfield at some point, but obviously not this early. But be it as it may, Dortmund could have even still won the game had Julian Brandt showed a little bit more precision and found Maximilian Bayer Girassi pretty much wide open in front of Courtois, which was just a few seconds before Real Madrid made it 3-2 through I think Vasquez is what it was, right? And I don't even know how to treat the Emre Can thing, because I said it before, it is so insulting to me. All you needed to do was sprint back and then maybe have a chance when Vinicius Jr. before he scores the 4th one to get a foot in there, because he needed to decelerate because there was still a defender there. So to show this sort of performance, and this is really what worries me the most, I think the spirit in the team could be much better. And the fact that your captain is showing this display, like, how does this resonate with your colleagues, let's say, which his teammates really are? And of course, how does it resonate within the team that Nuri Sahin cooked himself? And what does this do to your confidence levels in the coach, in the authority figure that you really need to have? And can you take Nuri Sahin seriously from here on out? As a Dortmund player, I don't know, because he got really publicly slated for these substitutions. I'm pretty sure that the players are also smart enough to really instantly recognize that he is not really helping his team. In fact, he is really hurting them. And to not only play against that, but also seeing your captain, who's supposed to be the number one role model, play like this, it is very worrying going forward, because something like this can really cause a rift within the team, can be demoralizing, all this, and we're already not playing well. So I don't know if there is a effect where this team sort of bonds together and trying to, face this adversity, or if everyone just sort of lets go and says, oh, well, if Emre Can does 5% less, then I'll do 10% less. And it's just a downward spiral. So this is sort of the worry I have, and which is why I think you need to send a clear sign. And I don't know if you sit him on the stand, put him in the under-23s. I don't know if you need to go that far, but I don't think Emre Can needs to see the football pitch for a while. I don't care how bad the situation is personnel-wise against Augsburg. That's just so atrocious. It can't happen again.
Yeah, it's, again, 2 games in a row now, too. And it's not exclusive to those 2 games either, where Can has been very, very lackluster at best. And going back to Sahin here, I just wanted to mention that you touched on it too. I don't know how the players really take him seriously either. I, for one, it just, as a viewer from the outside, it's hard for me to take him seriously too. This was the angriest I've been watching Dortmund in quite some time. Like, I like to goof around and shit on this show, but like, I was fucking livid, and I was screaming watching this game and throwing shit around whenever they conceded 5 goals in the second half. And it's
a new record for Dortmund in the Champions League, by the way.
It's unacceptable.
They've never conceded 5 goals in the Champions League. So congrats to Nuri Sahin. Amazing.
this club should not be a destination for coaches to learn the ropes at. This is the standard needs to be higher, and you don't need to be constantly hiring a learning coach. And this isn't even a learning coach issue. I mean, this particular changes in this game were so beyond that that it doesn't even warrant going back to that. I think it's almost, sorry for the loud ass car going by, Jesus. A lot of people saying it's a fireable offense. I wouldn't necessarily even disagree. I know you guys mentioned and tossed around some names on the YellowWallPod, like Kovac is available. Graham Potter also is a pretty enticing name. I don't know how strict the board is still with German speaking coaches. I was looking earlier also at another name. I'm not sure if he actually retired or if he just stepped away from his club. A Christian Streich too is out of a job at the moment. So there's a handful of names that are not great by any means, and of course you're going to be going in circles with a stopgap manager. But I don't know really where we go from here. We're pretty early into the season still. I mean, of course we're a few months in, but we're going into a break, and it could be a good time to switch things up. And I am running out of patience personally. I mean, there's been a handful of games now where I've come on and said, he's made a mistake, but now the team has responded, and maybe we could build on that. And then I'm let down again, and then I'm let down again. And then this is just a slap in the face for all supporters. And again, just unacceptable.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like we had this with Terzic too. It's like kind of the same frustrations where we just see these coaches come in who, I guess it's just these last two. So maybe it hasn't been as long as I'm thinking, but it seems like if we want to, like it seems like we've just been dropping and dipping. We have such back and forth performances. Like there's no consistency. It's like, how are we supposed to be taken seriously as a club, I think? And how are we supposed to get to the levels that the board feels like we should be achieving, but then letting by the coaches who aren't achieving it? And I would say, I said Terzic before, Rosa is like, I still go back and think to Rosa like what could have been. And I feel like that season was almost just riddled with so many injuries that there was not much he could do. And I wish they would have kept him on for another year. And just to see, that seems crazy to me that they let him go after a year. And maybe there's more to it. Maybe he's just like, nah, F it, I'm out. Cause you guys are crazy, which I could see that happening too. But
it seemed like a mutual thing, if I'm not wrong, kind of blowing up in a meeting. Again, that's just from whatever I read, but who knows what actually went down. I don't think we'll probably ever know.
It's just frustrating when it doesn't seem like anything's really being taken seriously if they want to achieve what they claim they do, as in the board.
Do we want to just quickly touch on Augsburg and get out of here?
Well, real quick, do you think in what scenario do they fire Şahin this year? Quick answer.
Probably right now, right?
Do you think they will genuinely, or do you think they're genuinely thinking out of it, or are they going to just back him?
I feel like if they would have done it for that sort of result, they probably would have done it by now. I mean, Augsburg is another very beatable team. God, if we have another depressing performance and another shitty result, we're going to be drifting into maybe not even the top 10. I haven't looked at the table yet, but that should be enough for me. We're going into November now, and top 4 is going to be already in question here.
Well, I'll be honest, I simply don't know, because I don't know Lars Ricken very well as what kind of head of sport he is. I don't know Sebastian Kehl all that well yet, because he's only been around for a little bit. And, talk about a rookie coach. We also have a rookie sporting director, more or less, and we also have a rookie head of football. So it is really amateur hour at Dortmund and the decision making. So my biggest gripe with the Şahin hire is really that it does not feel like it was a hire on merit. And my club, which is supposed to be the second biggest club in Germany, being run like a meritocracy. And the fact that it's not, that Nuri Şahin was around and it felt like a good fit for them because they all know each other well. Yeah. And of course, Sebastian Kehl, is he going to fire someone that he played together with? It's all very difficult. And I think today there were actually reports that Nuri Şahin has a job guarantee. So usually, if you know the mechanics of soccer, if the reports of job guarantee come up, then usually it doesn't take too long for the coach to be actually out. But maybe they're serious about that. I don't know. I honestly have no idea. Mark Rosa had a job guarantee, and see what happened to him. So it's all a bit baffling to me. I hope that Lars Ricken makes better decisions going forward, but this was sort of his first big one. And yeah, we're all sitting here scratching our heads, and it's not like we didn't see it coming because Nuri Sahin does not have a big CV coming to Dortmund, and I would have appreciated if Dortmund really interviewed a few more coaches. Like I said, De Zerbi seemed to be like a better option at that point, honestly. And maybe Graham Potter is a better option right now, but I don't know. It's difficult because Dortmund do have positive trends as well. I know Carver said they are very tiny, but of course Dortmund do need consistency. So maybe there is, and maybe I sound very stupid here, but maybe sticking with Shine and riding out the idiocy in the hope that he turns things around is the way to go. But I feel very hard. I have a very hard time to arrive at that point right now.
Yeah, I could see that too. It's just the belief is dwindling day by day. I'm telling myself again, hopefully this weekend could be an opportunity for us to really take not only a tiny step in just 15, 20 minutes, but a step in a convincing step in the right direction. But again, who knows? I mean, Augsburg has not beat us since 2020. It's been several years. They've drawn us a handful of times. They're also pretty low in the table here.
Yep, they're 15th.
I don't know. It's St. Pauli's low too, and still that has
but
not been.
Augsburg have conceded the second most goals in the Bundesliga with 18 so far, and they look extremely pedestrian. So what I hope that Dortmund do is try to control the game a lot. I don't need them to shellac Augsburg, not on the road, because did we even win on the road yet? I don't think we did. Aren't we like 16th in the away table or something like that? I'm not entirely sure, but it could so be. So this is sort of what I want from Dortmund. I don't want anything spectacular. I just want a solid win on the road and then go from there, because the cup game against Wolfsburg is coming up after that. So we don't need fireworks necessarily, but it just needs to look solid, and your defensive shape must not be exposed the entire time. These are sort of the basics. Obviously seeing football that's easy on the eye and free flowing is nice, but I think the number one issue right now is to shore up the defense and not make silly mistakes that invite a very toothless opponent to create good chances. Yeah, just play solid football, be the better team, and show it. That's sort of my expectations. I don't need a 4-5-6-0 win in Augsburg. I just need a solid 2-0 win and get the heck out of there. That's sort of my expectation.
I knew Wolfsburg was next week, but I completely forgot. And not only that, we're away in Wolfsburg too. Oh yeah,
and then it's Leipzig at home. So fun.
I'm feeling a headache coming on from hearing that.
I do have to correct myself. We have 1-1 on the road. It was at Club Brugge in the Champions League. But besides that,
Champions League,
Bundesliga, 0-0 against Werder Bremen. We lost to Stuttgart, lost to Berlin. Real Madrid. So yeah, I mean, this next week is going to be big. If we can just get, as you said, just kind of solid, like steady performances, cool. But it's going to be a big test with on the road at Augsburg, on the road at Wolfsburg for the Pokal, and then coming back home to Leipzig, which they like to beat us up at home. So it's going to be fun, real fun.
Yeah, I just looked. Dortmund are 16th in the away table, if you want to call it that. Where are Augsburg in the home table? Oh, they're actually in 7th. And good news, Dortmund are 1st in the home table. So if all games were at the Westfalenstadion, because I count 4 wins, then we'd be champions. But unfortunately, I don't know. Maybe the fans need to break into the Augsburg Stadium and paint the seats yellow first or something. I don't know what needs to happen for Dortmund to find their away mojo. I know I say this often at times. It's obvious when you have one of the best stadiums in the world that you play better at home than you play on the road, but nevertheless, it shouldn't be this sucky on the road.
So Augsburg, Saturday, 9:30 Eastern, kickoff. Then Wolfsburg coming up next Tuesday in the Pokal. And then, as you mentioned, Leipzig next weekend, next Saturday at home. Carver, any last thoughts before we get out of here? Anything else?
No, sir. Again, Stefan, I appreciate you coming on, taking the time to chat with us. It's always very fun to have you. It's always a good treat. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. Next time we'll talk about the 5-game winning streak.
Yeah.
And the surge to, like, I don't know, just say 4th place. That'd be good enough. But I'll be honest, it's really hard to have hope right now, even though we have on paper such a good team, and it should be more competitive. I mean, I'm glad that Freiburg are doing well. I'm glad that Frankfurt are doing okay, and Union Berlin are also up there. But nevertheless, Dortmund should have, I don't know, 4 or 5 more points, and should be right up there with the rest of the league. And so, yeah, hopefully next time I come on here, we have something more positive to talk about.
I mean, hopefully, but I don't know. With Dortmund, I don't know if that's ever the case. When you have something good, it always gets taken away. But no, we appreciate you hanging out and listening. If you don't already and you want to follow Stefan and the YellowWallPod and give that a listen, everything is linked in the description of this episode. Appreciate you guys hanging out and listening, and we will see you later.